Of the 7 most ambitious structures humanity has ever built, only one has survived the passage of time. The other 6 disappeared through earthquakes, fires, wars, and in some cases, amid a silence so deep that even archaeologists have struggled to fully explain what happened. One of them may never have existed in the way it was described. And yet, to this day, it is still considered one of the wonders of the ancient world. This is the kind of story history books often tell in a hurry. But when you slow down and take a closer look at each of these 7 structures, what emerges is more than just architecture or engineering. What emerges is human ambition in its purest form, the need to leave behind a mark so enormous that time itself could never erase it. It was an attempt to transform stone, marble, gold, and wood into something eternal. And what makes this story even more unsettling is realizing that, in most cases, time won. The list that became known as the 7 Wonders of the Ancient World includes the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, the Statue of Zeus at Olympia, the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, the Mausoleum at Halicarnassus, the Colossus of Rhodes, and the Lighthouse of Alexandria. 7 monuments, 7 different civilizations trying to tell the future that they existed. And the remarkable thing is that of all of them, only one has actually survived into the modern world largely intact. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built around 2560 BC in Egypt. For more than 3,800 years, it was the tallest structure in the world. Think about that for a moment. No other human-made structure surpassed its height for nearly 4,000 years. It was built with a level of precision that still sparks debate among engineers and archaeologists today. And its sheer scale is so overwhelming that numbers alone can't fully capture what it feels like to stand before it. More than 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing an average of about 2.5 tons, and all of them arranged with astronomical precision that defies any simple explanation. The 4 sides of its base are aligned with the cardinal directions with a margin of error of less than 1/10 of a degree. Considering the tools available at the time, that level of precision remains one of the greatest mysteries in the history of human engineering. What makes the pyramid even more remarkable on this list is the contrast between its fate and that of the other 6. While the Great Pyramid endured, the others were swallowed by time in completely different ways. The Temple of Artemis, located in the ancient city of Ephesus in what is now Turkey, was destroyed and rebuilt more than once over the centuries. The first version was burned down by a man who, according to historical records, wanted to become famous at any cost. He set fire to the temple in 356 BC, and his name was deliberately erased from official Greek records. The Greeks believed that erasing a person's name was the harshest punishment that could be imposed. The second version was even larger and more elaborate. It survived for much longer, but it too was eventually destroyed, this time by invasions and the gradual abandonment that followed the fall of the ancient world. Today, all that remains of the temple is a single, lonely column standing in the middle of an open field. One column representing what was once described as one of the most beautiful structures ever built. The Statue of Zeus at Olympia stood about 13 meters, or roughly 43 feet, tall inside a temple dedicated to the king of the Greek gods. It was sculpted by the legendary craftsman Phidias, the same artist responsible for the statue of Athena in the Parthenon. The statue of Zeus was made of ivory and gold, and ancient accounts describe the experience of entering the temple and seeing it for the first time as absolutely breathtaking. Zeus was depicted seated on an elaborately decorated throne, wearing a crown of olive leaves and holding a small figure of the goddess Nike, the personification of victory, in one hand. The sculpture was so enormous compared to the temple's interior that some ancient visitors reportedly said that if Zeus ever stood up, he would smash through the roof. The statue disappeared sometime around the 5th century AD, most likely destroyed by fire, although the exact historical records are unclear. What we do know is that it simply ceased to exist, and no accurate visual representation survived to show us exactly what it looked like. The Colossus of Rhodes had one of the best documented endings among the ancient wonders. It was a gigantic statue of the Greek god Helios, built on the island of Rhodes to celebrate a military victory. It is estimated to have stood about 33 meters, or roughly 108 feet tall, the equivalent of an 11-story building. It remained standing for only 56 years before an earthquake brought it crashing down around 226 BC. Even after it fell, ancient accounts claim that the enormous fragments of the statue remained scattered on the ground for nearly 900 years, with people traveling from far away just to see its remains. That alone tells you just how powerful an impression the Colossus must have made. Construction of the statue took 12 years and was financed by selling abandoned military equipment left behind by an enemy army that had unsuccessfully attempted to invade the island. The Lighthouse of Alexandria was perhaps the most functional of all the ancient wonders. Built on the island of Pharos, near the city of Alexandria in Egypt, it served as a guide for ships approaching the harbor. Estimated to have stood between 100 and 135 meters tall, it was one of the tallest structures in the ancient world. A giant mirror at the top reflected sunlight during the day, while a fire was kept burning throughout the night, making the lighthouse visible from dozens of miles out at sea. But successive earthquakes over the centuries weakened its structure, and by around the 14th century AD, it had almost completely disappeared. Underwater archaeological research carried out in recent decades has uncovered stone blocks on the seafloor near the site, confirming its location and reinforcing just how enormous the lost structure once was. The Mausoleum at Halicarnassus was a monumental tomb built for King Mausolus in what is now the city of Bodrum, Turkey. It was so elaborate and imposing that it gave rise to the word mausoleum, which is still used today to describe large funerary structures. The building stood approximately 45 meters tall and was decorated with exceptionally fine marble sculptures created by some of the greatest Greek artists of the time. Earthquakes gradually damaged the structure over the centuries, and during the medieval period, many of its stones were reused to build a nearby castle. Like so many of the ancient wonders, it was literally dismantled and repurposed, a form of disappearance that is perhaps even more haunting than sudden destruction. Some of the sculptures that once adorned the mausoleum survived and are now displayed at the British Museum in London, serving as fragments of a grandeur the world will never see assembled again. And then we arrive at the greatest mystery of them all, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Unlike the other 6 wonders, there is no archaeological consensus about where they were located, whether they actually existed in the form described by ancient writers, or even who ordered their construction. The most famous accounts associate them with King Nebuchadnezzar II, who supposedly had them built for his wife, who longed for the lush green landscapes of her homeland. The idea was to create a series of magnificent stepped terraces covered in vegetation, supported by an advanced irrigation system that carried water from the Euphrates River all the way to the highest levels of the structure. But no excavation in the region of ancient Babylon, in modern-day Iraq, has uncovered conclusive physical evidence that the gardens ever existed. Some researchers have even suggested that the gardens may have been located in an entirely different city. Others believe they did exist, but that their exact location has yet to be discovered. And some argue that the Hanging Gardens were largely a literary creation, a powerful symbol rather than a real architectural masterpiece. This mystery surrounding the gardens is, in a way, what makes the 7 wonders of the ancient world a subject that never gets old. Because this story isn't just about magnificent structures, it's about how fragile human memory really is, and how much our understanding of the past depends on records, archaeology, interpretation, and sometimes sheer luck. Some of these wonders definitely existed, and yet they eventually disappeared. Others may have existed only in the imagination of the people who described them. And still, all 7 remain alive in the way we think about the ancient world. Interest in archaeology, ancient ruins, and historical mysteries continues to grow, especially in digital content. The combination of history, suspense, and that feeling that there are still secrets waiting to be uncovered makes this subject come back stronger with every new generation. New technologies, such as laser scanning and artificial intelligence, are now being used to virtually reconstruct these lost structures. And every archaeological discovery reignites the debate over what truly existed and what may have been exaggerated by the imagination of ancient civilizations. Because deep down, the 7 wonders always raise the same question. What is humanity capable of building when it decides that something must last forever? Of the 7, only 1 managed to do it. And perhaps that is the most fascinating part of the entire story. Not the survival of the pyramid, but the silence that remains where the other 6 once stood. A silence that continues to be excavated, studied, and debated, because humanity still refuses to accept the idea that some of the greatest things ever created simply vanished, leaving behind too little evidence to tell the complete story.